Chaplain Rowan, thank you so much for being our guest here this morning. Looking forward to a great conversation. I know we have some folks on here that are
Mhm.
looking at joining the Army, coming into the Chaplain Corps. We have some folks that have already been picked up for various for
Mhm.
active duty, for reserves, for the candidate program. I'm sure we have some other chaplains on as well. As I was saying, some folks that
Mhm.
remember you or have served with you throughout the years. So let me give just a little overview of how this is going to work and what we're going to do this morning. We are going to start with a little bit of an interview of Chaplain Rowan. I'm going to ask her, tell you a little bit about her bio and her background. Then I'm going to let her tell her Chaplain Corps story, how she got to be where she is, how God was using her throughout the time, and how God was confirming that call. And then at the end, we're going to have some time for questions and answers. So if you can think of questions that you have for Chaplain Rowan, if you would put those in the chat, that would be great, and we will get to as many of those
Mhm.
as possible. I
Yeah.
also want to mention that we have several of our recruiters online right now, Chaplain Kim and Chaplain Bolin, as well as Sergeant First Class Allen. If you have specific questions about the process, you can type that into the chat, and they will direct message with you and be able to answer those questions, or at least get you get you started in the going in the right direction there. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our guest this morning, Chaplain Julie Rowan. She is a graduate of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary up
Mhm.
there in Wake Forest. It's a great school. It's where I got my DMin from.
Oh,
And
neat.
um, she has had just an amazing career. She has had some great assignments. She has worked as the MedCom command chaplain. She has worked in personnel at the Pentagon. She has worked at West Point. She has worked in USASOC, and now she is the garrison chaplain at the world's largest military installation, or what we affectionately call the center of the universe, Fort Bragg. So
Amen.
she has a wealth of knowledge and information, and we're excited to hear from her this morning, and especially to hear about how God called her and has used her throughout ministry. So, Chaplain Rowan, thank you for being our guest this morning. Um,
Oh, thanks. So
and
yes, Chaplain McCreary, I'm honored. Thank you for bringing me in this forum to be able to tell my story. I think this will be my first time really going back and telling how I came in, how God really did have his hand on my life. So I don't think many people have heard the story actually. So this is kind of wonderful. I'm going to disclose some personal things in my life that I think would be helpful. So actually, when I was 20, I was health wise had a stroke. And of course, at 20, you're doing you ought not be doing. And so I think a lot of my time with the Lord came immediately when I was put down real quick with this stroke that as a young kid, you don't realize what's going on in your life. But however, I think that's when God became more real for me than anything before. And so when I was in the when my family not really there, I was in the hospital. It's actually Bethesda, and had my own encounter with the Lord when he became more real in my life. And that was a profound time frame when I said to him, I can recall it like it was yesterday. Because they were getting ready to do some, crazy things. They thought I had a tumor. They wanted to do surgery, and of course, being that this was on the left side of my brain, they thought I would be a vegetable. So I was facing some really tough things as a young, 20-year-old. So I said to the Lord as I made my way down to that chapel on the fifth floor, because I'm by myself and my parents had to go back and because it was a long haul. I stayed about a 30-day period in the hospital. And so they when I'm in there in that chapel, I just said, Lord, if you have me do anything in the world for you, I will lay my life down and make sure that I dedicate my whole life to you. If you just help me through this moment in time. And of course, the prayers came through. The Lord opened up that door. I felt his immediate presence in my life. And now granted, that was the turning point, but it surely did take me a while to figure out what it was God intended me to do. And it took me about 6 years, right? 6 years later, I'm going through school, trying to get things, done, get out of college. I was attending some of my churches in the area where I was at school there, and I was heavily involved in the youth group. And some of the kids were asking questions that I knew the youth minister was not answering. So it would bothered me. So I talked to my father about it, and he said, Julie, why don't you go to seminary and you get the answers to the questions. And of course, at the time, I looked at him and I said, "What's a seminary, Dad?" I thought that was some kind of cemetery, so or a convent. I didn't know what it was all about, but that was the door that opened, and I decided to go to Southeastern. And how everything just opened, doors opened when the floodgates open when you're doing God's will, right? And so when I finally turned all of it over to him, he just started opening up these doors. And of course, along the way, I experienced jumping out of an airplane. And of course, when I'm in seminary, I get a recruiter. I'll never forget, Chaplain Herb Kitchens came into our seminary, and he got a hold of me and he said, I used to work for your dad. Of course, I have a dad who was also a colonel in the chaplaincy. And of course, he's no longer with us anymore. However, he spent at least 25 years and retired a colonel. Anyway, it was kind of interesting because he said, I work for your dad and we would love to have you come in as an airborne chaplain. And of course, I was like, this is great. I would absolutely, so, but it took me a while to get into the Army, because when you fill out all that paperwork, and my paperwork in the packet that I was putting together sat on somebody's desk for like 2 years. So I was kind of detained. So even after I got out of seminary, I still didn't have any real direction to go. So I go back to my dad's home church in Timmonsville, South Carolina, and became the youth pastor there. And then once things started rocking and rolling with my packet being seen finally, then I get a phone call and they said, hey, we've accepted you into the military as an Army chaplain. Now, mind you, I didn't even go into any kind of candidacy program. I didn't do any of that. I just came right on in. And it was just a blessing. It was like the Lord had just opened up the right doors. I waited long enough for it to get my experience under my belt, because you have to get 2 years outside of being, in your school in seminary. They didn't count that. So I had to get some more experience and do more things. And so that was pretty much what brought me into the military. So it was like the Lord had his hand on me. It just took me a while to get to the place where I knew the context that would seem more feasible for someone, me as a female chaplain. That was the one thing I knew, that I came in as a Southern Baptist chaplain, and I was endorsed by Southern Baptist agency. However, I did switch over when I became a major to Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, but it was a wonderful realization that I could do this in the context of being in the US Army, bringing soldiers to God and God to soldiers.
So
That
you got me curious here. I got to ask a quick question. So did your dad send that recruiter after you? Did your dad go to her?
I don't really know, honestly. I believe that it was just divine appointment that Herb Kitchens showed up at Southeastern, right? And certainly I don't know. I think he did not. I must admit, this was done by, divine appointment. The Lord knew that Herb had it hit, that interaction with my father and working with him. And then when he came across me at that school, he just about fell out. And that's when I think he started connecting these dots. And he said, "We really want you." And I've never been wanted so bad, right? And because along the way, I've been in jobs where I was fired, stuff like that. It was like, Lord, where do you want me? How do I, find the niche in the context you want me to do this in? And it just made sense that I was going back to what I knew, which was I grew up as an Army, brat, as we used to be called, with my father being a chaplain for so long. And again, he would have never wanted this for me, my dad. He knew what the Army was about, right? And so he was trying to, keep me and protect me from being in situations he didn't want me being in. But he knew that God had his hand on my life and he wasn't going to question God, right? So that's where it came down to. I just realized that, now that I look back on it, that was part of his plan. How else would he bring me in? I would have never connected those two, and neither would my dad. So yeah, that was just a great experience, and it just seems that's confirmation right there. I haven't even thought of this story until today, and so it has been quite a journey though, and I have really gleaned from my experiences. So I'm trying to look down through my what I tell you next. How was God moving? And I think y'all see how God moved in my life and how he's been a part of my life.
Let me ask you a question though, real
In the
quick.
foundation. Yeah.
So when you talked about how God was confirming that call, were there other people along the way that kind of came alongside you and were confirming that call in your life?
So I would say that the people in the church that I attended at the beach, um, whether it was confirmation or just me knowing that people deserved a person who had been accredited in a school from seminary to be able to handle some of these pertinent questions that young kids have nowadays, right? So I think that they helped me see in more ways than one, even though there was some negativity going on in that to some degree, because they would tell me, "Oh, you're not going to be able to, you know, be a chaplain or let alone a minister," right? I mean, because at that time it wasn't looked upon as for a woman to go into the ministry, right? So it was kind of highly disfavored. Um, so I had to kind of push through. I mean, my parents were always behind me, right? So, but the people that I got ordained by in my dad's church in Timmonsville, those folks were very supportive. Believe it or not, I mean, in a Baptist church, no doubt, I mean, there were more people for me than against me that pushed me through that presbytery I had to go through to get ordained. And it was amazing. Because, my father kept putting before the people of the church, Julie will retire one day and she can come back in here in this church and preach in this pulpit. So it was very exciting to see how much they were supportive. Even though at that time that they've never seen a woman in the pulpit in that time frame.
So you had some unique challenges there, kind of in ministry before coming on active duty. Have you had any unique challenges? Kind of silly question. I guess we've all had unique challenges being on
Yeah.
chaplain, but can you share some of those challenges that you've had since been on active duty?
Well, it does seem like every place that I have been assigned to there's a sense for me of having to prove myself, and I always am harder on myself. So it takes me a good 3 to 6 months once I start figuring out what the job is. And then I can, pretty much have more of a relaxation. But I'll tell you what, you work harder when you first arrive at a place. And I'm sure that's probably everybody's, experience and that I've talked to, whether that's a male or female deal. I don't think there's a difference there. Now, have I had problems with people receiving me in the ministry as a female in the Army? I've been more accepted in the Army. Now, I've had some instances over in Germany where, a couple of my peers didn't know how to address me, maybe wanted me to be a little more like a secretary instead of a chaplain. When I preached in some of the services, couples or families would walk out, didn't want to hear what I had to say. Not that they disliked me, they just didn't agree with, having a woman preach from their pulpit, right? So it's been those. That was early on, though. It did not continue, because I think people change, right? And I have not had those early on types of challenges because I think it just gets easier as we get further down the road in our career, because people know who we are, and yes, your reputation precedes you, and so you hold yourself together with that. I mean, I believe that's been so those are some of the only things. It was early on in my career as a captain.
So that kind of reminds me of one of my mentors, Chaplain Scott Kennall. He said, if you've met Chaplain Rowan, you have a friend for life.
Amen. I know him very well.
I think you've won over a lot of people in your career.
Oh, bless y'all. Yeah, hey, I love on people. That's my thing, man. I feed off of everyone else, right? That's where I get my joy.
So let me ask you another question here. So you have had, as you mentioned, quite a few assignments. Let me just a second one. I mute some folks. Forgot to mute when they came on. That's okay.
That's okay.
The reality of Zoom and the world we now live in, right?
Amen.
So you've had some really unique assignments. You have gotten to work at West Point. You've gotten to work at the Chief's office, and of course Fort Bragg, which is the best assignment ever.
Yes.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
And I know this would be like maybe choosing your favorite pet or whatever, right?
Right.
What's been your favorite assignment?
Okay. Now for me, it always I like the teams that I am that I've been a part of, and what makes it for me and the job that I have are the great teams that people that surround you, that you work with, that you get the honor of working with every day. So obviously the place I'm at right now, I have the best team ever. But now I also enjoyed the assignments. That to me was actually working and dealing with people's livelihoods, and developing chaplains, and giving them, the next assignment, what I think is best for them, or how the Army sees fit, or the Chaplain Corps. So it was really the pinnacle one was, I probably would say, the assignments. And I had a blessed team. I had Chaplain Kramer, I had Levine, we had Kopek, Agbera. We had a good team, right? Chaplain Williams. I mean, all these wonderful chaplains that make up a great team. And so, but making assignments for chaplains, I was able to get more into the lives of them and their, what makes them tick, and what their needs are as a chaplain, families, and how they, see themselves in their next couple years. And so how to, help them and craft them and mold them and make them in what you feel that the Lord has for them in the future. So it's an honor. That to me was the best assignment.
I can appreciate that, 'cause I remember you coming out to see us in Hawaii during my very first assignment, and saying some really encouraging things about career and future and ministry, and then give me a great big hug afterwards.
Oh yeah.
And I just met you, and I just so appreciate it. So
I know, if you can imagine COVID, man, I've not been able to hug people as much, so it's been hard on me as a extrovert.
so you've had these great assignments, and now you are at the center of the universe. So can you tell us what you do right now for the Chaplain Corps at Fort Bragg and what that
Oh,
kind of looks
absolutely. And so with this job, first of all, let me just say, I was excited and fearful all at once because now, mind you, as much as I was in assignments, my assignment folk never put me in a garrison. So this is my first experience and thank God it's here at Fort Bragg because it is the center of the universe. But it really, really does have its different. It's like a diamond, right? There's so many different facets to this job as a garrison chaplain, but it allows me to impact every unit ministry team on post and to help me cultivate this climate in this environment where ministry can flourish, right? And it ultimately impacts people's spiritual readiness. And that gets me right back to the people because as you grow up in the Corps, oddly enough, you come in as a battalion chaplain and you're doing exactly what you want to do. You are right in the like boots to the ground, right? Your muddy boots on the water, right? You are in uh hands-on ministry, doing the best ministry ever. But then as you grow up and you get into being a major and you have a little more responsibility and there becomes you're a little more of that staff officer because as a battalion chaplain, you're just ministry all hands in, right? But then you have to work on the staff officer side. And then a lieutenant colonel, you're really more in that, staffing administratively, doing things that really do take you away from the ministry. I mean, you have to be intentional to make ministry happen at those levels. And then as a colonel, you become the one that empowers others under you to make that happen, right? So at this point, that's where I'm at it as we try to, bring the spiritual readiness to this community here at Fort Bragg. But there are myriad of things that are involved in an assignment here at the garrison. For instance, rating your DA civilians, having the contracts that we have, multiple contracts, especially with watch care. Now, granted, in COVID, we had to turn the watch care off, but now we're getting ready to resume those back in the next few weeks. Your resource management world, where you have the money, the CTOF, the AF, the NAF, right? I'm learning so much about that, by the way. That's been an education in itself for me. Also, I'm involved in the chapel leadership where, I try to get the right fit for the senior pastor for, the right service. We deal with the command master religious plans. We're working in facilities, right, with our chapels and try to improve our facilities with DPW and all the issues that come along with DPW and how long it takes them to get things done. Our SOPs for the distinctive religious group leaders with all the many different faith groups that we have here. Let me just give you, there's a few: Wiccan, Buddhist, Islam, Norse, Jewish. We have all kinds of wonderful different worship group for all groups. So, but those are some of the things that I can say have been pretty vital here for us at Bragg, because we have to be diverse. And this is an ever moving place, and it's constantly has got an op tempo like you wouldn't believe. And we're just excited that we, as the team that I have here, I've got about 15 altogether on my team. So there's about 5 chaplains, 3 senior NCOs, and then the 4 56 Mike C4 and below. I have 3 DA civilians and a resource manager, account manager, and religious educators. So these are some wonderful assets that help make this ministry thrive.
So I'm glad, I really appreciate you mentioning that, because it brings to mind something that, we have people on this call and of course watching on Facebook Live that have been in the Chaplain Corps for a while. We've got some that are coming your way on active duty. We've got some that are looking at the Corps. We also have a guy that I just commissioned this morning about 45 minutes ago via Zoom.
Wonderful.
just became an officer less than an hour ago.
Wow.
Uh, First lieutenant or second lieutenant, sorry, Medina. Um, for those that are like brand new or looking at this, can you kind of explain how that garrison ministry works for a battalion chaplain? What does that balance look like for between unit and garrison, and what are some of those expectations?
So I believe is that when you first get and arrive, I do think it's imperative that you reach out to your RSO wherever you go, and you see how you can plug in and how you can. Since we're talking about community revitalizations, how do we reinvigorate the community in which we're in? And as a unit chaplain, it's finding that creative way to bring your unit into the community and vice versa, how we can help them as chaplains in their units, because we provide them the facilities and the funds to make those religious programs happen. Now they have to do the work too to get their master religious programs together, right? To plan better, to know how to plan a year out on what they're looking to do in their own unit. But we can help assist them in one, helping be as, and maybe join alongside to be creative with them, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, so if I'm going to revitalize this community here, what does that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean I can tap into some of the other para organizations here on this post? Yes, because I've got a lot of para organizations here. So what they do is they are local churches here that tap into our soldiers, and they offer up all kinds of wonderful things. Like Manna Church here is a pretty big church in this area in Fayetteville, and they have a what you call their I can't even think, their dream center, and it's a place where they feed the homeless. And we're doing an activity or internally here with our RSO, but we're wanting to open that up to some of the chaplains and with their soldiers, if they're wanting to come and be a part of these types of things that we can do in the community. Another opportunity is there's a place called Rick's Place, which is I don't know, it's got about 50 acres of land right here in the heart of Fayetteville. And they do soldier programs where they bring soldiers in that can help do whatever service programs they are in need of there on that property, because they do is a nonprofit organization that really has, well, they can utilize it for summer, doing creative things like bonfires out there and ropes courses and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just finding the right fit that you think will be for what the assessment of these folks here need, right? How do we tap into that community? So it's me helping those chaplains in those units to help them figure that out, so that we can work it together, because they're not all alone on an island. You know what I mean? They can use their garrison chaplain to help them in more ways than one, and maybe they don't tap into them enough to figure that out. But there are ways in which we can assist in what their heart's desire is. That we just have to know, and that open line of communication goes a long way.
Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining that, because, like I said, we've got several that they're brand new to this within the last episode. Um, so garrison ministry, there's a lot involved in that. But kind of want to shift gears a little bit. So as I've said, you've had this kind of broad career, and you've had the unique position of being in personnel. You've also been operational, and you have seen consistently a variety of chaplains. I'm sure working in personnel, you've seen a lot of successes. You've probably seen a few failures too.
Yeah.
Could you tell us, what do you feel are some of the main characteristics and capabilities that chaplains need to have, that the Corps is looking for? What makes a good chaplain based on your experience?
So yeah, that's a large question, and I say the thing is to mainly have a love for the soldiers and a love for their God as they connect the two. Now, granted, competency is everything too, right? I mean, the Army expects us to do certain things that sometimes chaplains aren't aware of until later on in the career, right? Um, and I say that because the administrative piece is huge, and it's only getting more prevalent, to where like writing ability is huge, in how you write things. Granted, I've had to learn a lot along the way, right? And of course, I fall on some of the people who have things that are already in place for you. Sometimes you can use that, but sometimes what it's doing is it's a like it's a cheap thing, in my mind. I think we need to utilize our writing skills as much as we can. Um, so my thought is, what are the so yes, to have integrity, to be a servant leader, to be a magnanimous leader. Some of the qualities is what I would say. Those are the ones that rise to the top for me, because we're all about serving other people, right? And that's what we do best, and serve our commanders. And so it can be a plethora of things out there for us to pick and choose, but what really is a successful one is someone who stays true to themselves, um, and try not to be someone else, because it's so we get competitive, unfortunately, in the chaplaincy. And and when there's no need to be competitive. We need to lift each other up and love each other up. I guess that's part of who I am, right? I'm all about loving people. And so it's people know that I love them, because I can't help myself to, because I'm doing I can what I can to help others. So that servant leadership, and uh, the having great character. I mean, so it's all those selfless service, and the Army values, and the chaplain corps values, to obtain those things. Having a compassionate heart, being very compassionate to others, and the team player, right? We all look about, are you a team player? Do you honestly play well with others, especially those who are not, in your same faith group? Um, Cooperation without compromise is what we cut our teeth on. Um, and and that's the pluralism piece, right? So it makes all the difference to have all those things, but if I had to say one, you can't go wrong with being a servant leader, right? You can't go wrong with that.
I appreciate that, and it's something you've said a couple times throughout this is that that idea of not being an island. You're not out there alone on an island. There's other people
Right.
who have good. I think of some of you probably John Aceman. He comes up with the most amazing creative ideas. We were in a brigade together. It was like, can I steal this from you?
Yeah.
So willing to share, and that is so important. Can you share a little bit about how you have throughout your career maybe leaned on some of your peers, leaned on your friends, taken encouragement from them, stolen good ideas from them?
Oh, absolutely. Um, right. I've mentioned his name, Ken Williams. I leaned on him many times. He was a very well versed person with writing ability and all of this, and I had to reach back to him and ask him to help me. And when I was in the war college, I'm like, hey, I'm in really a dire straits here, And so he calmed me down. He gave me some wonderful tips, and where to find resources, just all kinds of wonderful nuggets, gold nuggets that he helped me with. Um, yes, anybody who's got something good, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And yes, you should help those under you. When you come up with a great idea, then make sure you reinforce that with your subordinates, always putting them to where they look, shine the light on them more than on yourself. um so I think it's a twofold thing, right? definitely need each other in this corps, and why not reach out to those who have done this already, who've gone down the course for you. They've had the hard knocks, they figured out the right fix, here's the right equation to make this happen. And it's nice to have somebody who's got creative thoughts, and but it's also nice to have somebody who can take care of the details. So you need both of those people, right? I was not a big detail person. I like the big vision. I'm the visionary. I come up with great ideas, right? But I need somebody to make sure the details happen. So they have to pull me down a lot. I mean, I'm a pie in the sky kind of gal. But I do have a few others that I lean on. I definitely, when my father was alive, I leaned on him a lot. So because he was a chaplain in the Army, I felt like I had my own mentor in him. And I think people knew when I came into the Army, I felt they thought I had it all together and I knew everything. I just kind of faked it till I made it. You know what I mean? Because I had my dad pouring into me the things in which he told me would make me a successful chaplain, right? Um, but then when he died, I had my mother. So it's been quite a journey for myself having such a supportive family. It helps to have them behind you, supporting you. It helps to have your spouse supporting and giving you that love and support you need. So I do lean on my husband a lot as well. So I can't leave him out.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, I've got a few more questions for you. I'm just going to remind everybody if you have questions for Chaplain Rowan, if you would type those in the chat, and we're going to get to some time of question and answer. So we have the blessing of having a senior chaplain on here, and so we would be remiss if we didn't take that opportunity to try to stump her with some good questions.
Amen to that. And I've been stumped, so I'll do my best, y'all. Whatever questions you have.
So if y'all want to be thinking about those questions and typing them in, that would be great. So I got a few more questions for you because again, you've had a lot of opportunities to coach and to mentor. What advice do you have for those that are considering a call to ministry and specifically to ministry in the Army?
So what I would suggest to folks and advise is I would say to be comfortable in your own skin, to be confident in your own abilities and your own skill, and that to know that God has, equipped you for such a time as this. And he will carry you through some of these places that you think, oh, I'll never be able to do this job. But he does give you, I mean, it's almost like he prepares the way for you in the, like, say, the assignment you might be in right now, but that assignment will prepare you for the next move, and it'll give you what you need to be confident at the next level. So that's what I would say. Mm-hmm.
Well, and kind of along those lines, this is National Women's History Month.
Yeah.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to speak directly to some of our female candidates, some of our female applicants. And is there any specific advice that you can give from all of your experience to them?
So yeah, again, I mean, the thing that I remember, I joined we were in a conference many years ago where there were some young candidates, and I got a chance to speak to a young lady while I was there, and this was many years ago. But I can remember and I've already stated it, but she asked me, how do you keep your identity of who you are? And I told her, I said, without a doubt, the thing that helps keep me being a female girly girl, however you want to say that, because I just, because we're always in this uniform, you can't be distinct. I mean, but you just have to go within what God's gifted you in and believe in yourself. And again, that's where the confidence comes and being comfortable in your own skin. Because I had to say that statement to her then. I was like, if you know who you are, then you will succeed, because you're not trying to be someone else. and you just will be more successful as a young woman, a young chaplain woman, because you have to realize what came first. Well, I was born a woman, right? So, and then I became either you became a mom next, or now you're a chaplain. So you have a couple of roles here, but the first thing is first is you're a woman first. So take that and hold on to that, and don't let that be lost along the way. Always maintain who you are, your identity, and who you are in Christ, and how that will how that translates into your ministry. Um, and it's just been what I've held on to, and it's helped me get through these years. I've never questioned who I am. I've always kept my strengths. I know what my weaknesses are. Um, and when you know what your weaknesses are, then you find ways to bring people who can help give you the strength in those areas that you're weak. Um, but those aren't so bad to have. I think it's always good to embrace what your weaknesses are in order to, make you a better human being anyway. So I just, realize that as time goes by, some days I realize, well, I'm not that good. And I would say that I'm not that great in the writing area, but I have had to learn the hard way through hard knocks. And so now I feel like I've come a long way. But hey, I wouldn't be so remiss to take a, um, a course in writing if I needed to, in order to enhance that area in my life where I feel like that I'm weakest.
Ma'am, I think we lost your video.
Oh, okay.
You're back.
Okay. There you go. So did you get what I said though?
Yes, we heard everything. We just lost
Okay.
seconds. We lost the video. So that's great, ma'am. I really appreciate that. And I'm looking through the people that are on this call, and I know somebody that wasn't able to make it today, but we'll be sending the link to this to one of those female candidates that we've been trying to encourage. So thank you for that. I know that's going to be meaningful for some of our folks.
Absolutely.
So some big things happening. It seems like our world is changing constantly, and it's changing in big ways.
Right.
And of course, one could argue that it's been changing for a very long time, and it's always changing. Um, so where do you see, kind of looking back and what you've experienced and everything that you've been through, where do you see kind of the chaplain corps going in the future, and how God is going to use chaplains in the future, going forward?
Well, I would say we're an integral part in the Army as of what we're seeing today. We might see some things, with this thing that just got passed, the equality bill, but hopefully we'll all stand strong and still be able to speak from the pulpit what we feel, we can speak. I think we're going to be in some tough times. However, I do believe that God is sovereign, and he will, continue to see us through some of the things going on in our world. This is why we need chaplains, to be able to bring the peace back to where chaos has been. I also, I don't know, are you going to ask me about where the garrison ministry is going? Is that what you want me to?
That too.
Okay. So my thoughts there is that maybe we might not, well, what we're seeing recently is our monies have been cut in half. So we might be having less governmental funding with our appropriate funds, and more reliance on technology to provide, like what we're doing now, virtual, but for virtual worship opportunities. And also maybe greater reliance on our civilians to provide us with the monies for religious education for that continuity. Because they're our subject matter experts, right? They are there for a reason. They do a magnificent job with that piece. You don't have to worry about. And so I do think though that it might be a more isolated culture, that we'll see coming our way. But this is where the RSO can continue to develop a great community opportunities to connect people. So that's where I feel that garrison ministry could thrive more, and in a world that is unknowing, what we don't know. But you know what? We can all honestly say for many years we've never known the future. So so it's a matter of trusting in God and giving Him all the glory, and He again will equip us with what we need in the chaplaincy in the Army today.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Like I said, the world has always been changing, right? And we're
Yes.
adapting, and that's great to know that the garrison ministry is adapting along with it. Because if we don't adapt, we lose our
Yeah.
relevance.
Amen to that. Amen. So I'm very hopeful about our future. We've got a great chief of chaplains and deputy chief of chaplains who have definitely put themselves and poured out their hearts for all of us. And I think they're paving the way in which we are going in a good direction. And all it takes is for all of us to come together to help, assist them in what their future endeavors are. And I believe that we'll get to where we need to go, no matter what. Great leaders in place.
Excellent. Well, so now I've got some questions. So for those of you who are joining us, who are kind of how we do these, typically I send out some questions ahead of time. We lost you again.
I know what I'm trying. Whoa. Are you, well, let me see.
We can hear you.
Oh, what have I done?
So worst case, we can still hit. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So typically how we do this is I've talked to Chaplain Rowan before. I send her some questions of things I'm going to ask, so she can just kind of be prepared and know what we're going to talk about. But now is the point where it's questions from our group.
Okay.
No control over. So I've got a few questions here for you, and some of them might be a little bit I don't know how to. I'll just let you judge what kind of questions they are. So one here that came up is, so are there any consistent skill gaps you tend to see between seminary training and chaplaincy? So I think what he's trying to get out there is deficiencies coming in.
Okay. So my thought is this. Now, I haven't been in seminary in a while, but I would say when I went through it, I did not have the ability to do crisis ministry. Now, if you get into a CPE type environment, that would be helpful to work in a hospital, but you're creating that for yourself. But the seminary doesn't have much, I don't think, going on with like doing that type of crisis, traumatic type ministry, right? Emergency ministry, right? For when, natural disasters take place. How do we come together, and respond as a nation or as an army, right? Or as a chaplain corps, because everybody has got a different way of doing things at different posts. So I would say that's the gap, is that they're not really realizing what we're looking for them to already start setting that foundation in seminary. If they could do more of that, and maybe even some more counseling skills to help the seminarian with their counseling skills. I had a few sessions, that I did. I took some courses with some counseling sessions, but it was just scratching the surface. The thing where I learned the most about my counseling ability was when it was kind of like, right here we have a family life center here at the Waters Center here, and they help, and they actually put into place some skills that the chaplains here on this post can glean from and learn from and acquire in their toolbox. So they work with you which is really good to have. So all I suggest is the gaps are, I think, the counseling piece and then the traumatic experience that you need to work with crises pieces. Those two are kind of major, and learn how to do funerals, right? Funerals are huge for us in the Army. But if you're not a part of a church somewhere that allows you to at least help shadow the pastor of that church, you got to get it somewhere, somehow, right? So again, the seminary is not equipped to help you in that, right? I mean, there's just courses that you take, but you've got to tap into other churches in that area to give you the experiences that you do need.
Yeah, that's really great. I appreciate that. It's making me think a little bit of my own experience. And I never had to practice a funeral until I was in the military, and we're
Right.
do it a million times. Why don't we do this? And
Right.
it's such an important piece, and we don't do this in seminary.
Exactly. And I don't know why there's such a big. Now you do sometimes. I remember seminary days, we had worship, right? You remember when they gave you worship days? But how often out of all those people were you the one up there actually putting out the message, right? And getting a chance to preach? I was just always in the congregation, right? So we'd go and attend, but we weren't giving those services. So you kind of are in a deficit unless you're part of a chapel, or I'm sorry, a church. You won't get it unless you attend somewhere else that gives you that experience.
And I know I've told some of our candidates that are needing that experience to go to their local funeral home and get on the list for people that don't have a pastor. And sometimes that can be helpful.
Very helpful.
So
good idea.
So we got another question on this. So hold on a second. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Okay. So, and this is a question that I think everybody gets this. Every one of our guests always get a question like this. How do you manage the balance of time with family, in this person's case, seminary, because they're still in seminary, ministry, both in the Army, but also in the local church? How do you balance all of that?
Oh, man, isn't that the age old question? I'd make $1 million if I could write a book on that. Well, and for me, I would say the success is that you just have to draw the line when you've done the job. Because look, I started out burning the candle at both ends, right? And this was before I had a husband. And I was thinking to myself, if I continued on this continuum, I'm not going to be good to anybody. I'm going to get so burned out. So I had to learn early on, as I was a lieutenant first when I first came in. And I learned then, I was like, the Army will get the best of you if you allow them. But you can set your own boundaries, and you can set the time when you leave the job. Now, granted, they always say you're a 24/7 soldier. Well, that's true, but this is where the balance comes in. You find the time to have a good time, because if you can put in place as a leader, because I always try to leave at a 4:30 time, if not 5, right? Because I don't want my people to stay any longer than I have to. If I leave, that gives them permission to leave. So I always am very cognizant of what I am exuding to them. And if I'm a workaholic, which I could be, I'm very much a workaholic anyway. I have the tendency to do that. But I have to be, very much intentional to remove myself from the job, because it'll be there tomorrow, right? But to be able to go home and take time to spend time with my family, because your family's going to be there. Hopefully they're going to be there when you retire, because you've got to cultivate your family along the way, and hopefully give them what they stand in need of as you go through your career. But again, Army comes and goes, and they will find somebody else to take your place, and they will not miss you. But hey, it's your family that really sticks through with you thick and thin, and you must make time for them. And if you're not, shame on you. I mean, you have to almost incorporate it on your calendar when you take leave. I was terrible at this. I had to learn the hard way, to put it on my calendar, whether it was a 4 day or 2 weeks or, a week or whatever, but make it happen and spend that time with your family and make it the best you can make it. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, they need you. We put career first because that's what we'll have a tendency to do. But please get the pecking order right. Make sure it's God, family, and then job, right? And yet the chaplaincy will kind of sometimes call you to do other things, and you'll be kind of tested, but that's okay. I mean, sometimes we'll still have to do what we do, for God and Army, right? Who, but it behooves us to, make sure that we take the time for our families.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. 'Cause I know that that is something that a lot of us struggle with. A lot of our folks, we do
Mhm.
a mentorship group every Friday via Zoom also, and a lot of our candidates, they ask the same question all the time: like, how do we balance it? Because we know that the Army can be very demanding on us all. So thank you.
It is. God bless. Yeah.
So another question here from Linda Cruz. That she posted this on Facebook, on our Facebook Live. So we know some people are watching on Facebook too. Um,
Awesome.
so how do you physically and mentally prepare to enter the Army as a chaplain?
So, okay. So physically, it's a constant. I used to be a cross country runner in college. So I definitely kept that as a discipline and ran a lot. Now I don't run as much now, but I've definitely had that then. I try to run 3 to 5 miles. In a day, and maybe as much as you can in the week, maybe 30 miles. And, I'm not trying to hurt you, but, try to get as much as you can before you come in, to get yourself in that shape, that physical shape that will, pull you through some of these PT tests. Now, this new PT test is kind of different from what we used to do. 6 events and versus 3. It's a little more intense. And so my suggestion is you find something. Now, right here, right now, I've been a part of a place called 9 Rounds. It's a kickboxing place for 30 minutes. You go and work out real strong and intense, and it's building up the core. So I would say do anything you can to build up your core, in order to get physically fit, because it's going to take or CrossFit training really is what this is all about. It's a CrossFit type training is what the ACFT is. Now mentally, I would say you would, keep praying, man. Pray, 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 and know that the Lord, is going to supply your need as you, see where you are along the process, whether it's coming in or when you're in, and then your long journey of the whole career trajectory. That mental thing is huge. You've got to, and let me say this: I started off in CPE, clinical pastoral education, and my supervisor at the time, and I took him the wrong way, but he said, "You need to find a therapist." Now, I took that the wrong way, but over the years, I have understood that to be take care of your mental health. You need somebody outside of yourself, outside of your circle, and to be able to have someone to bounce things off of and to keep you straight as you go through things. It's kind of like an accountability partner, right? But to have that person, and that maybe doesn't have to be a therapist, but it's got to be somebody that you connect with, and you're able to open up everything, warts and all, share it all, right? And have that place to do that, because that'll help your sanity check, and it'll keep you in the right frame of mind as you move into these other levels of responsibility.
Well, thank you so much for that. So, ma'am, we have been going for about an hour now, and I really appreciate the time that you have taken with us this morning. Thank you for sharing your life and your journey and your ministry and how God has used you over these years. I know that you'll be seeing some of our folks here again because they're on their way to you shortly.
That's excellent.
Then we have other ones that are in the pipeline, and some people here that are considering this call to ministry. So I am sure that you will see some of these names again. But
Yes.
thank you again for doing this.
Hello, how are you?
I'm going to ask if I could ask you to pray for our group here, to
Okay.
pray specifically for those that are considering a call to ministry, and however the Lord leads you.
All right. God bless. Yeah, I will do. Let us pray. Father God, it's been such an honor to be in this forum, speaking to these people who are interested in coming into the military as United States Army chaplains. Lord, I know that they're going through so much in their life right now, trying to figure it all out. But they have finally seen a call upon their lives, and you have opened up this door. And we just ask that they stay persistent and faithful in this calling as they move through the wickets and the processes in order to get to a unit in a post somewhere. We do know, Lord, that you are in control of all things and you bring the right people to the right place at the right time. So we just continue to ask that you make a blessing here upon them all. Pour out your spirit upon them and just give them every bit of encouragement that they need to never give up, but to always put you first in their lives in all things. And we lift this up before you now. In your name we pray. Amen.
Ma'am, again, thank you for taking the time to be with us here this morning.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody that has logged onto this call and everybody that is watching on Facebook. If you are interested in exploring this call to the United States Army Chaplaincy, please contact us, send us a message, hit us up through our Facebook page or social media pages. We would love to talk to you about this. We would love to walk you through this call to ministry and this unique call to the Army Chaplain Corps. We are here to support you and to do anything that we can along the way for you. So thank you again for being a part of this, and God bless.
God bless you, my friend. Take care.